I'm going to show you how I doubled my sales in my coaching business by using this long form video content framework and how you can potentially do the same if you actually apply what I'm about to share with you in today's video. Now, I know that might sound like a bit of a big claim, but I promise if you actually implement what I'm about to walk you through, you will see an increase in the amount of conversions that you get from any long form video that you do. And what I mean by long form video is like a webinar or a workshop or a masterclass or a live training or a challenge or heck, even a YouTube video. And so let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to share with you each piece of this framework, how to actually apply it, and why it matters. Now, a little bit of context. If you haven't already seen this, and you might be living under a rock, I studied this stuff, so this is why I've seen it. But Google has done a study that shows, and they call it the 7-11-4 formula, that shows that an average consumer needs to consume 7 hours of content from a brand before they're ready to make a purchasing decision. And so the 7 is 7 hours, the 11 is 11 touch points, the 4 is 4 different mediums. So this would be like social media, text message, email, maybe different forms of social media, things like that, right? Now, why does this matter? Right? Most people are out there just putting out short form content, short form videos, things like that. And it takes forever for somebody to trust the brand enough to want to buy from you. And so by you actually first getting long form videos out regularly and making sure you're driving traffic to them, getting people off of social media to consume these videos is going to be absolutely crucial for you taking a stranger on the internet, nurturing them, building trust, giving value, and turning them into a client. So I'll talk a little bit about how to run campaigns in these videos, but the primary purpose of this is to show you how to actually make your videos convert better, especially in 2026, where Google has done another study that shows there's now 1.2 billion, with a B, billion posts being published every day on the internet, which is wild. And so all that to say is information itself is a commodity. And so if all we're doing in our videos is just educating, just teaching, it's going to be commoditized. It's going to start to fall on deaf ears. You're going to attract leads that are more interested in like getting the cheapest option rather than the quality service that you could probably provide. And so a little backstory here to kind of show you, and you probably have seen this evolution over time with video, with long form video on social media, is, you know, back in the day around, let's say 2016, we can go back farther if you want, but let's say around 2016, Facebook stole the idea of live video from Periscope. And they had originally introduced it to just like celebrities can go live. So you would see like The Rock and people like that going live on their Facebook. And then it was around 2016, if I remember correctly, they introduced it to the public. And I remember owning a gym and I started to go live. It was like around late 2016, maybe early 2017. And I basically did that from around that time all the way to 2021 pretty consistently. And that's how I got a lot of people to my gym. That's how I basically became a micro celebrity in my town in South Florida. And that's how I grew my online fitness business. And then, of course, mixed into that, like webinars were big, masterclasses, challenges grew. And a lot of it was centered around long form video content. And so this is nothing new. But the big change here now is in how you deliver the actual content. Because before, you could just get on and teach your little heart out and get people. But then, again, now the information is so commoditized, a lot has changed. And, you know, if you look at like the speaking industry as a whole, this has been a fundamental from the beginning of time, beginning of like really where people were monetizing speaking and video and all that stuff, but it's more prominent than ever. And so if we look at this framework here is, and I'm going to, if you're watching this, I'm going to zoom in and there's what I call the C5 framework. And this is how we move people from the beginning of your video all the way through. And so the first C is what I call the chance. And so the chance is where we're essentially wanting to have a great hook. This is obviously going to start with the title of your video, the headline, whatever it is, and the hook, which the hook is typically that first 7 seconds. You know, the average person, they say, has an attention span less than a goldfish, which is, I think, for most humans around 3 to 7 seconds. And if we don't captivate somebody's attention in that first 7 seconds, they're out, which is okay if it's the wrong person. So by now, I'm hoping to have repelled the wrong people, and the right people are going to still be here. And so, how do you attract the right people? How do you have a really good hook, or what I call the chance? Well, it's all about resonating. So if you think about the concept of tuning forks, let's say, for example, you have a tuning fork at 537 and another tuning fork at like 600. Well, if you ding the 600 one, nothing's going to happen to the 537. But if you have two tuning forks at 537 and you ding one, the other one's going to start to vibrate too. And so that is a lot of how we want to come up with a hook. And so it's a lot about coming up with the right words, saying them in the right way with the right tonality, and making sure that we're saying them to the right people. This is the concept of you got to know your dream client. And so to back up for a second, to make any of this stuff work, we do want to make sure that we are speaking to an actual ideal dream client. Not a whole niche, not freaking a demographic, so to speak, but we need to know our human. We need to know the person that we are creating the video for. And this was a big hack for me back in the day when I was really learning communication and learning how to speak and learning how to monetize videos and speaking. Was like, I would imagine, even if I was talking to a crowd, or I've talked to crowds of hundreds and hundreds of people, I would imagine that one person, I was speaking to that one person. Not that I'm like weirdly staring at one person, but even with video, I used to train people to put like a photograph of one of their clients, and that they would do the video speaking to that client. So it's imperative so you can really nail this down. Now, the second piece of this is going to be going into captivating somebody. So first we got to connect, then we got to captivate. And the way we captivate is through shifting the way people think. If you heard of the term thought leader, like they're literally leading people's thoughts. And so we got to start to lead people's thoughts. We got to shift their thinking, shift the way they believe. And the best way to do that is through storytelling. So captivate, in a sense, is we get attention through the hook, and then we got to keep it. And to keep attention, you want to be able to change the way people think, and then you do that by storytelling. And we're going to unpack this a little bit more in just a second. But the third big piece of this is you've got to convert. We need to influence people to take an action that they already want to take, but they're not taking. And again, we do that through a powerful call to action. And a call to action, and we're going to unpack this a little bit more in just a second, but it's all about making sure you are using the right words, the right tonality, and you're making it extremely specific on what you need them to do. And when you could do that, you will be able to convert any long form video that you do much more effectively. And so let's unpack this a little bit. And so we talked a bit about the hook, right? So the hook is absolutely crucial. And I'll put a link down below of just, I have a whole bunch of hook formulas that I've used successfully, and you could swipe them if you want. So I'll put that in the description down below. But it's really important that you are speaking to the pain and or the desire that they want, that there's some elements of curiosity, that there's specificity, that they're using their language. And now, of course, depending on platform, whether you're using YouTube or if this is a title for like a masterclass, it's going to vary greatly, right? YouTube, if you're trying to like grow on YouTube, you're going to probably want to really focus on SEO driven titles and things like that. That's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. But primarily, when you come up with a title or a hook, especially the hook, you want to make sure that you're using the word choices that they're using, that you're speaking to the very specific pain and or desire that your ideal client wants, and that there's an element of curiosity. There's an open loop. Like, you don't want to give the answer away right in the first 10 seconds, or why would anybody want to continue to listen? All right. And so the second thing is C2, is I call the capture. So chance is like they given you a chance. Now it's the capture. And so typically when I'm doing like a live training or a webinar or something like that, I'll do what's called a micro win offer. And so a micro win offer is another way to think about this, is kind of like a lead magnet, where you're basically not giving anything away, but you're getting people to either stay. So if you're doing like a Zoom workshop and you want people to stay to the end, you could say, hey, and if you stay to the end, I'm going to give you this super awesome thing that helps solve this very specific problem. So basically, we're trying to give a micro win that somebody wants, and that way they stay. If I was doing this on a live training and I wanted to increase engagement and really capture people's attention, I would get people to comment down below for the micro win. So even if they left the live training, I could still reach out to them. And then the best way to open this up is through a story. And it could be something very short, like I did at the beginning of this video, just talking about like, hey, when I first, Facebook stole this from Periscope, or I leveraged Google, or whatever. I'm just kind of opening up with a stat or story or something that's might be interesting and also might help you build authority. Okay. And then you want to speak to the problem. When you speak to the problem, like I was like, hey, information is commoditized. Hey, this is what's going on. Like, right. So at the very beginning, I'm speaking to, hey, like if you are interested in actually getting more sales from video, you might want to pay attention to this, right? And then of course, shifting beliefs. The way I did this in this video so far is, at least I'm not done yet. You're going to see how I'm doing this throughout this video. So this is kind of meta, is like, I want you to believe the truth. Like a lot of people are believing, because if you're not yet where you want to be, or if your videos aren't yet converting at the level that you want them to convert at in terms of sales, I don't care about views or followers or any of that stupid egotistical stuff. Like I know Instagram follower or influencers or whatever I'm going to call them, they have hundreds of thousands of followers, but they're broke as hell, right? It's like I would rather always be able to have more. Like, anyways, I can digress too much on that. But you want to shift beliefs. So a completely different example of this, I used to do this in my fitness business all of the time, to where I would have, serving people, helping them lose stubborn belly fat. And people all the time were like, Jason, I'm eating healthy, I'm dieting, woo, I'm doing all this stuff. Nowadays, like, I'm on GLP-1s, I'm on peptides, and it's like, but I'm still fat, It's like, what do I do? And I would be like, hey, it's not about eating healthy, it's about eating right. And I'm starting to shift the way they think, and that's going to help lead into this big insight, which brings us to C number 3, which is the core, right? So first we hook them in, we let them know who it's for, like the tuning fork example. And then if you're on a live training, you drop some type of micro win offer. But even if you're just doing a regular YouTube, you tell a story, speak to the problem, start to shift beliefs, open it up. And then the core is where we're actually teaching. And so this is where we're dropping that big insight. And so in today's video, I was talking about like, hey, we got to connect with people. We got to captivate people. We got to convert people. And now I'm going to start to unpack it. Now I'm going to teach you the how behind it, right? And so if I was doing this in my fitness business, with the example I just described, if I was like, the big kind of insight that starts to shift their thinking is it's not about eating healthy, it's about eating right. So that's me dropping the insight. Now I'm going to unpack that. Now I'm going to tell a story or drop a metaphor or an analogy and start to break down some of the steps behind that. So you see, it's not just about teaching, it's about giving people that same aha, that same epiphany that you had. Russell Brunson, I believe, calls this he has a couple of things, so I might belabor this or get this wrong, but he calls it the epiphany bridge story, or the domino belief, or something like that, right? To where it's basically, we want to be able to get them to see the thing that we need them to see. That is vastly important. If you're just trying to teach somebody, like, you gotta just eat better, it's like who cares? Like, nobody's gonna, they've heard that a million times. We got to actually give people the insight. And the best way to do that is through a story. And this is where I like to share a story. So, for example, to illustrate this, I remember when I first started teaching people about how to monetize their videos and their speaking, I was still a fitness coach and I was crushing it. I had grown my business to multiple 6 figures, primarily using video. And I had a client of mine, and actually he wasn't a client, he's a friend of mine. His name is Leo. And Leo was like, dude, you need to show me what you're doing. You're obviously crushing it. I need some help. Can you show me how you're monetizing video like this? And I was like, not really. I don't know. I don't have a core. I don't know what but it made me start to think, and this is where I initially came up with the C5 framework. It was when it was born, and this was back around late 2020, early 2021. And I really didn't think I can help him. I was just like, but he was like, I think you can. So we talked about it, and I was like, cool. So I was working with him one-to-one, and I was teaching him a lot of these same principles, but back then. And he ended up taking his online health coaching business. He had just quit his corporate job. He needed this to work. And he took his health coaching business from around, it was bouncing between like 2K to like 8K per month. The first month, he ended up getting to like 16K. And then the second month of us applying this, he got to 26K. And then the third month, he got to, I think it was like 32K. And then he kept growing from there. And I was like, wow. And a lot of it was distributed to like using this type of video and using this, right? And so this is like a true example, but it's me sharing, like, this is how I would now break into the steps, right? I'm sharing a story of somebody that applied the insight, that started to take it and run with it, and now I'm illustrating it. So now I'm basically giving that bridge into the steps. So you see how this goes beyond just teaching at somebody, and you're starting to influence. You're giving them hope. You're essentially shifting their paradigm. You're giving them a new way of thinking, and you're doing it through the power of storytelling. Another way you can do this is through like using metaphors. I call it the MASS formula: metaphors, analogies, or story. So a big thing that I teach people when it comes to monetizing their videos is you got to have the right messaging. You got to say the right words in the right way, in the right order, to the right people. And so I might use a metaphor on this. So I might be like, hey, imagine going to China and trying to order Chinese food, but you speak no Mandarin or no Chinese or whatever. You speak only English. Like, it would probably be pretty frustrating. You might be saying what you think are the right words, like to you, but they're not going to understand you. But imagine you studied a little bit, you learned a little bit, you knew how to speak some Mandarin. And all of a sudden, you were able to order Chinese food very easily. You said the words, the person responded, you got the action that you wanted. Now, that's exactly what proper messaging is. When you know how to say the right words that your audience wants to hear in the right way to them, in the right order, you're going to get the right people to respond. And now people are like, holy shit, light bulb moment, right? That's the power of actually doing this effectively. So you go from teacher to belief shifter. And when you could shift somebody's beliefs, that's where people are going to want to work with you. And then the fourth piece here is the dynamite. It's where you blow shit up. It's the call to action. And so the call to action in most videos, and I'm more so thinking in terms of like lives, like webinars, masterclasses, trainings, things like that, is where you want to recap what you just taught. So this would be me saying like, hey, so remember, information's commoditized. We need to get people to consume 7 hours of content, and it can't just be teaching. We need to connect with them, like truly resonate, captivate, and we have to be able to convert them. So I'm recapping the big insights in some of the steps that I want you to remember, and then I can go into a micro win offer. So I can say, hey, if you want to get a download of this exact C5 framework, which is true, I will put this down in the description below. What I want you to do is just click. So now you're giving somebody that micro win offer. That's going to help solve a micro problem for them. And this, my friend, is what A, gets you more leads off of your videos, but B, it's going to build more trust with people because you're solving micro problems for them, both in the video by shifting their beliefs, and then you're giving them something useful, valuable, and tangible. And then the last piece of this is going to be what I call the close. And this is where, if it was a webinar, it's your Q&A, and you're really starting to like, it's basically objection handling. If you're selling through masterclasses or webinars, you're, in a nutshell, giving value, but also objection handling. And then I like to do some type of close off, especially if it's like a training. And this is where, if you see like the old school anchorman, it's like, stay classy, San Diego. It's like you like having that close off. Like, one of my favorite speakers is Ed Milet, and he's really good at this. Like, I know in his like podcast, he's like, it's like max out, right? It's like, but when you have that, it makes it memorable and it makes you different. And so a lot of times when I'm doing like a live training or something like that, or a masterclass, I'm going to have an end off where I might be like, hey, my mission is to help people get their stories and their messages out, because I believe that's going to help end prolonged human suffering. The more so it's like, I'm going to speak to that. I have my kind of ending that I'll go into, and it's memorable for a lot of, at least people have told me that they remember that. And it's just one extra thing that you could do as a brand to help build more connection with people. And it really connects to that deeper why, but it's also something that kind of like, stands out to people. Does that make sense? And so my friend, like those are the keys right now to really being able to monetize live video, especially in this era that we're in. Now, I promised that I would share a little bit of context to how to actually get people off of social media into consume your stuff. And so when I teach clients this, typically phase one, especially if they already have like a Facebook or an Instagram, it's like, let's start there. So phase one, it's like, let's not get people off of the platforms and let's drive campaigns to get people to watch your live, say on in your Facebook profile page, or your Facebook group, or your Instagram. Like, let's get people there first so we can build trust and people can see like, okay, they're giving me lots of value, blah, blah, blah. The second phase is we want to run campaigns to where we get people off of the platform. And this could be onto like a Zoom workshop, an in-person workshop. It could be into a private Facebook, I guess, on platform, but it could be into a school community. But we basically want to get people off of these platforms. That's phase two. And so when you run a campaign, you basically want to make sure that you have the hook down. The hook is the most important part if you want to get people to consume your stuff, especially if you're driving them off platform. It needs to be like hook will make or break if people actually go consume your long form content. So really, really important. And I will do a video on this. I have done some videos on this in the past on the channel. I'll do a new one, kind of like to go along with, this era that we're in, where there's so much content out there. And then you just want to make sure that you have really good kind of anticipation posts, belief shifting posts, and things that can allow you to give a call to action where you could send it out on social media, in your email, SMS, and doing everything you can to get butts in quote unquote virtual seats. So running campaigns is how you do it. You never just want to do a long form piece of content, like a training or a webinar or something like that, without actually doing a lot of promotion. The promotion is everything. So with that said, I hope you found a lot of value. If you did, make sure to click subscribe, if I could talk, so you don't miss out on any more videos that I drop. And I would love to know what you thought. Put a comment down below. And again, look in the description section. I will have this framework in there that you can print out, you can model. And I also find my viral kind of hooks formula that you can borrow and use to come up with some of your own hooks as well. Have an amazing day. Remember, your message matters. Don't be afraid to speak it. Bye for now.